Red Hat is an enterprise software company with an open source development model. We're helping the world to consume open source software in a very productive manner. We want to make sure we provide choice to our customers, and choice basically provides for them taking the decision in their own hands, which is basically giving you the sovereign decisions. In order to have that flexibility of choice at your fingertip, at your availability, it is our job to make sure that our software is standardized, does work on basically all the relevant platforms. I wouldn't say even many. They need to work on all the relevant platforms. We'll give sovereignty to the decision maker at customers or at, let's call it, organizations publicly as well.
This is CIONET TV. My name is Hendrik Deckers. I'm here today with Hans Roth, who is the Senior Vice President and the GM EMEA of Red Hat. A very warm welcome, Hans.
Thank you very much for having me here, Hendrik.
Hans, you have degrees in economics and in finance from the Eurobusiness College in Hamburg and from the University of Applied Sciences in Utrecht.
Yes.
You started your career in fashion at CNA, and you had a long career in consulting at companies such as KPMG, IDS Share, HP Enterprise, and in 2016 you joined Red Hat, where today you're leading the EMEA business.
Correct.
So Hans, tell us a little bit more about yourself. What is your background? What are your secrets? And how did you end up in this position where you're today?
No, thank you very much. I mean, it's a good summary of it, and I don't speak Dutch, right? First of all, to say that. Look, I have been developing my career from various areas. So I've been starting to work, I would say, from the age of 14. Right. My parents. This is how I came to CNA. Actually, my father was in that company and made me work from the very first day on the weekends, to earn my own money. So that was very interesting. So this is how I came to that. The interesting piece is that I've never been. It's probably a secret now. I can disclose here. I have never been close to IT in my young life. So other than probably some of my fellow colleagues here who kind of like started to work on the computer, on the Commodore, right, when they were at the age of whatever, 12, 13 and so on, right? I never did that. My first PC was actually a Mac. Okay. Right, which is a very unusual for my guild of coworkers here, right? But I came to the IT industry, interestingly, and I call this kind of like through the church.
Through the church?
Yes. So, you called out my career there a little bit. So I was actually, when I was 19, I started to open my own business with a friend. So we were producing clothes, right? I'm a bit older, right? I mean, we probably almost same age, maybe. So we were in the area of techno times, right? So we were printing shirts, we were doing that. So we were very big into that. And actually we, let's say we had good times, right? But every good time has an end. So, and that end was basically that we couldn't survive financially our business, right? I started to study then, and I started to study economics to understand what we did wrong. Right? I hope I got it now. But at the end of the day, during my studies, I was called by the Jesuits, and they were asking me, actually, if I could not help them to optimize and organize their fundraising system, because it's all on paper. And I said, it's not a problem for me. I will do that. And I started to actually use my skills on the Mac, because they were running everything on a Mac. And this is 30 years ago, right? Okay. I started to basically create a fundraising system out of scratch from them. That was my first IT project.
For a church.
For a church, right? So I could also say God helped me to be part of the IT industry, community. Right? So which is basically my history on that, and ever game through my life here. Yeah.
Okay. So today we're here at Red Hat. For those few people who don't know Red Hat yet, in one sentence, what is it that Red Hat does and that it does really, really well?
Well, Red Hat is a very simple an enterprise software company with an open source development model.
Yep.
That's what we're doing. So we're helping the world to consume open source software in a very productive manner.
Okay. And 30 years ago, because Red Hat is this year, I think, a 30 years old company, it was maybe 100 people. And over the last and today it's 20,000 people. Over the last 5 years, the revenue has doubled. So you have seen a very, very impressive growth.
Yes.
So how do you manage a fast growth pace like that?
Yeah, that's very good. And by the way, just to come back to the 30 years, the first thing Red Hat ever sold for revenue was T-shirts, right? So that's probably why I'm here as well. No, but look, I think this growth can only be managed, and it's really an impressive growth over those time, right? And I think if I would decompose it to maybe 3 core components of the growth, I would say it's the people and the culture we have in the company. It is the ecosystem, which includes partners, but also our customers, who are absolutely important part of that. And finally, it is the innovative development model which we're having in the open source. I think these 3, and I can maybe compose that a little bit. If you think about our people, and I tend to say that nobody joins Red Hat because of the pension plan we're having, right? Everybody wants to make an impact here. Everybody is absolutely up on being 100% engaged on what you're doing every day. There's a big passion of everyone, which is kind of like a culture of passion, which we are cultivating internally as well, and which helps us a lot to really get these growth managed over time. So that's one of the areas where I think people and culture are making a big difference, and it's always said as the secret sauce of Red Hat here, right? Then you think about our ecosystem, and we can call out in the early days the ecosystem, the partnerships with our OEMs, about certifying our software. I mean, we also need to think a little bit about the risk people are taking, certifying software for this company who is just coming up, right, and playing some things there. So there was a lot of commitment on both sides in order to make that happen, which also includes partners and customers then, who basically came up and said, like, we want to do that together with you, and we trust you can do that. So I think that's another ingredient of growth there. And finally, our consistent work we are doing in the open source and being true to our values in basically putting everything we are doing back to the community, committing back to the communities and help growing those is another core thing which helped Red Hat to grow over time.
So let's go a little bit deeper on these 3 fronts. So let's first talk about open culture that you have here. Yes. Because, I mean, we've been working together with Red Hat from CIONET for several years, and it's really something that is striking. How would you describe the culture here, and what is it that how do you build a culture? How do you keep a culture like that?
Yeah. I think it was hard over the last 2 years to keep that culture up, and I don't envy anyone who joined Red Hat during the pandemic, right here, not being able to feel that, because there's a lot of senses to coming to that. So I would say, look, our culture is something we are reminding ourselves on every day. It's probably the secret sauce, the mantra, if you want to say, right, which we need to understand. Red Hat is not owning a lot of assets, right? Our source codes are available for everyone, right? We don't have a lot of buildings here, right? Except one in Raleigh, right? The rest is rented. So it's really the capital of the company is the brain power of our people and the motivation of our people, which we do. I think one of the key things which I also have seen from my history, coming from many other companies, I think diversity and inclusion is one thing we are not just having as a buzzword on our sites or on our corporate books. It's something we are living every day. And I personally came from a very hierarchical environment. If you think about Hewlett Packard, which is a long-standing company, right? Obviously, it was very interesting here to see that titles are nothing, right? You talk over the argument, you win with the argument, everybody has a voice, and we cultivate this every day as leaders as well. Yeah.
Okay, so you also talked about the importance of the ecosystem and partners. Tell me a little bit more about that. How does that manifest? Can you give an example of also how maybe on EMEA level you work with your partners?
Absolutely, and I think it's getting more and more and more important over the last couple of years even, especially when it comes to the new platforms we're having. So if I can just, before we had our meeting, I was sitting together with one of our largest GSI partners we have here in the region, which is Accenture. And it's probably an interesting journey of how we are working together with those GSIs together. And we have more, right? I mean, it's Deloitte, it's Atos, it's Accenture. But this specific partnership we have also announced during Summit, beginning of last year actually, that we work very closely together. This is we are trending to put our open and inclusive culture into those partnerships as well, which means I'm talking to my colleague in Accenture like we talk here today, or I talk with everyone. So there's no lot of boundaries.
Yeah.
So that's very important. From an ecosystem point of view, we really have a couple of different areas we're working now together with partners. One thing is, I would say, creating choice for our customers with the ecosystem, which means onboarding ISVs, onboarding as much as services as we can onto the OpenShift platform to make sure that we are available as a choice, right, for our customer, and we can basically access the full portfolio a customer needs through that. Second part of the ecosystem we're working together is, I call this availability. So think about the channels we're having with our distribution partners, but also think about the channel we're having now. I mean, the hyperscalers, like the Amazons, the Azures, Google, or IBM Cloud, being available since, I would say, the last 5 years and ever growing. So we make sure that Red Hat software is available on all of these platforms. Yep. There's a very important ecosystem play for us because we need to make sure that that we can provide this choice in order to follow our mission of being a multi-cloud player. Yep. And then finally, what I alluded to with our system integrators in terms of partnerships here, it's really around this adoption and expansion of the usage of the software. We do have a small consulting arm inside of Red Hat, but that is basically focused on our technology, making sure it can work. But then the adoption really comes with those partners. Okay.
And so next to the culture, your own people, your partners and ecosystem, you have, of course, your clients. So how essential or in essence is it that Red Hat really helps organizations to become more successful?
So, I mean, outside, let's put it like this, outside of helping really clients to use the innovative power of the open source, I would say, I think there is no argument anymore that the innovation sits in open source. I think everybody knows. But you need to be able to use that power, right? And the usage of that is really something we have on top of the list of our importance of our support we're giving to customers in order to make that happen. I think it is not to be underestimated the importance of really driving also the cultural impact a company like Red Hat makes to our customers. So we are very close with our customers, with the projects we are doing together. We're almost melting the teams together, and this is on my level as well. So I'm high-fiving with my colleagues on some very traditional European companies, right? Making sure we work together. So I think that is a core component. One of the CIOs once mentioned to me, and somebody who was very close to us, maybe saying that, look, when we went through the time of troubles, you were always there, and that melted us together as an organization, and that's probably one of the core things we are working with customers.
So Hans, tell me a little bit more about the open hybrid cloud approach and strategy that you have. What is it? What does that really mean, and how does that manifest itself?
Yes. So for us, open hybrid cloud, and we're talking about this since many, many years, is the core of probably the availability of open source for everyone. It is getting into control of your business, being sovereign, if we call it like that, if we use that buzzword of today, in the decisions you're taking, because your applications, your workloads are interoperable between all the clouds, multi-clouds, and basically your core hardware. I mean, this is something which is really in the core DNA of Red Hat, that we always provided choice. If you think about us being the operating system with RHEL of choice in the past throughout all the data centers, I think we could now say we are the operating system of the cloud, right? We want to make sure we provide choice to our customers with that, and choice basically provides for them taking the decision in their own hands, which is basically giving you the sovereign decisions.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more about digital sovereignty. I mean, today, what is it? 90% of our data here in the West is hosted in the US, and digital technology and data are increasingly used as tools of power. Yes. And so individuals, companies, government, they need to reevaluate and their exposure, and they're launching initiatives to maintain or to reacquire their physical and digital control of their strategic assets, yes, being it data or algorithms or software. So how do you look at that? What is Red Hat's vision on digital sovereignty, and how are you helping your customers in this quest for digital sovereignty?
Absolutely. I mean, that is the key thing probably at the moment in everybody's mind. And I would say, first of all, it is maybe a complex thing people are talking about, where you can reduce the complexity into very simple core values, which we are bringing into the market since many, many years. I think it's the key value of having the choice of what you're doing. Where's your data? Where are your applications? Where do you want to put your applications, right? Which infrastructure you want to use? Going back to that fundamental elements of getting the choice in order to do that is something which is on top, and which we believe is the key thing of sovereignty. So you are sovereign to choose your own destiny, which means that obviously from a Red Hat point of view, that is a big burden for us, or a big challenge for us as well, because in order to have that flexibility of choice at your fingertip, at your availability, it is our job to make sure that our software is standardized, does work on basically all the relevant platforms. I wouldn't say even many. They need to work on all the relevant platforms. We are accessible into many areas. I mean, if you think about the relevance on that and the availability of Red Hat on many different clouds, right? Just, I mean, you think about AWS, Amazon, I talked about Microsoft, IBM Cloud.
Or your own data center.
Or our own data, or customers' own data center. But also thinking about the fact that, just to show how important is the recent announcement that we are available on Oracle Cloud, right? Which is the core fundamental thing which we believe will give sovereignty to the decision maker at customers, or at, let's call it, organizations, publicly as well. The second piece is, and I'm just returned back from Mobile World Congress last week, of course, like many fellows here probably. If you think about also the sovereign network, the decomposition of hardware and software layers in the networks, that's another very important point of providing this choice, where we are absolutely focused on, and we are working a lot together with our core partners like Ericsson, Nokia, making sure that this abstraction layer is working, gives you back choice, gives you back the sovereignty you need in order to do that. Third component, that's something which we are also focusing on a lot, is making sure from a policy-making point of view, we have that standards in place which basically help us to provide or help us support. So I was on the European Policy Summit for Open Source a couple of weeks back, which is another very important point, I guess, for us, helping lawmakers, helping policymakers to embrace open source as a core fundamental area of bringing that, which again goes back to the idea of providing, giving you the tools back in the hand, right? You can take the choice where your data is, which basically allows you to be sovereign in whatever decision you make, but for that you need to be able to have this choice.
Okay. Now, Hans, you speak to a lot of CIOs, right? On a daily basis, I assume. I mean, and that on European level. If you look at where CIOs are today, where they were 5 years ago, and if you look at how they are evolving, how do you see their role in business today? And what would your advice be to CIOs and digital leaders in general on where do you think they need to focus on really today?
Very good question, and yes, there is a lot of change. I think from a traditional IT, like outage kind of like management, making sure the whole thing works every day, and there are basically also what I'm coming from, right? If I think about it, to a innovation leadership, right? Where today CIOs are more and more involved into a conversation about how can we innovate our business models by using technology in a smarter way, in a better way, and actually providing that choice we're having with all the elements of security, cost elements. I mean, now we're talking a lot about carbon footprints, right, and sustainability. This is, I think, all kept like a basic element of things. But the key thing, and I think the key advice, if I may, the key conversation I think we need to have is kind of how can IT be a vital part of the innovation driver in a company, which is more than just making sure that there is no legacy in place, which kind of like stops from innovating, but really driving that next level and of innovation. I think that's the key point. Okay. I think that openness is very important.
Good. Let's talk a little bit more about your own role and your own organization. So tell us a little bit, how is Red Hat EMEA organized, and what is really your role here? Where do you spend most of your time?
I start with the last thing first, right? I spent most of my time thinking about obviously our customers and how I can help to make that impact which we want to make. That is core fundamental. That can be externally focused by putting myself into the discussion with our customers, our partners, right? Or helping our teams, coaching our teams, mentoring our teams in order to do that conversation. Now, from a Red Hat point, from an organizational point of view, I think there are two big blocks which we probably need to separate inside of Red Hat. Okay. One is the field organization, and one is our development organization, and this is the way we're organized. So for Red Hat, I'm running the field organization in EMEA, which basically means everything around customer success, sales organization, revenue leadership, adoption, and our partnerships we're having here in EMEA. That's where I'm taking the responsibility for, and I think that's the core component.
And what is that you are focusing on in your role? I mean, you need to lead all this, but where is that you? I mean, besides for customers, what's the most challenging bit of your role?
I think the most challenging bit of my role is connected to our cultural heritage, right? Because we want to make sure that everybody has a very strong opinion and a very strong mind in what we are doing every day. At the same time, we are a commercial organization, and we need to make sure that we have some kind of conformity in the way we are doing things, right? So I think that balance between absolute freedom, right, and accountability is the balancing act. I'm spending my time on making sure everybody can lead on their own within a network of teams here.
Okay. Well, how would you describe your management style? I mean, you manage very diverse teams. Teams in South Africa, here in Germany, in the Nordics, and so on and so on. How would you describe your management style, and how do you make sure that you build successful teams?
Yes. My style is very visionary, I would say, right? So at the end of the day, I love explaining the vision or developing a vision together with the teams, making sure that we have joint understanding of that vision, and then having autonomous teams that can really work the way and be the ones who are actually driving that forward. I think teams are as long important as it leads to success, and can be dissolved again. So that's really the management style I'm having. Yeah.
And what is your secret of success in attracting the right people, motivating them, growing them, and making sure that they stay with the company? Because many people stay quite a long time here at Red Hat, I think, in general. So what's the secret of your success in building this and acquiring, keeping the right people here?
Yeah, I think obviously in order to be attractive, first of all, right? If you think about the engagement cycle of somebody to come to Red Hat, we have the basics right. Okay, I think we do a lot of work in the great place to work environment, right? And we listen a lot there. But at the end of the day, once we are here, I think, and I said it before, nobody joined Red Hat because of the pension plan, which basically means we need to make sure that we keep on being attractive for this diverse talent. And diversity is in many different aspects, right? Diversity in your obviously in gender, in whatever other directions you're having, but also diversity in mindsets. I think that is something I'm really very much focused about, having people with strong opinions, allowing them to drive their opinions, but in a respectful manner. Yeah. I think that's a core component here at Red Hat.
Okay. Now, managing and creating successful teams is one aspect of a top executive, but leadership role is another thing. So, could you give maybe a description of your leadership style? Maybe let's turn the question around. How do you think people that work for you, that they talk about you when you're not around? How do you think you're perceived as a leader, and does that match, do you think, what your leadership vision is?
I hope so. Definitely not all the time there, and I mean I'm growing every day, every morning. I'm standing up. I'm repeating my mantra in order to get there. But yes, I think when teams, integrity is one very important part of my management style, and I hope I get this, and at least from those who tell me, they tell me, so I don't know what I don't know, right? But that's a very important point. So I think making sure that we can develop that further. I hope to leave that ideas of openness, of respect, and of teams being able to work together.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit more about your personality, because I believe being a top executive and your success has to do with the way that you're wired, how your brain works, with your core values and your personality. I think there's a big correlation between success and how you are as a person. So you shared with us that your MBTI profile is ENTP, also known as the visionary or as the debater. And an ENTP is a person with extroverted, intuitive thinking and prospecting personality traits. And they tend to be bold, they tend to be creative, they like to deconstruct and rebuild ideas, and with great mental agility, and they pursue their goals vigorously despite any resistance that they might encounter. I mean, what a beautiful personality, and I must commit, or I must disclose I have the same MBTI personality profile. So in order to discuss this, what I'm going to do, Hans, is give you 5 strengths of typical ENTPs, and you tell me where do you recognize yourself and how does that help you in your role here at Red Hat. So typical ENTPs, they are knowledgeable, they're quick thinkers, we like to debate, we like to brainstorm, we like to have original ideas, and they tend to be charismatic and energetic. Where do you recognize yourself most, and how does that help you in your job?
Yeah, I think if I take maybe 3 of them, which probably drive also a couple of people working with me mad every day in a positive way, is I'm pretty energetic. I love decomposing problems, right? So I think that is I would say on a debate level or whatever. I think there's one saying, right? I mean, of Einstein, basically. I don't know if I have the exact words, but it goes like, I'd rather spend 50. If I have an hour, I'd rather spend 50 minutes on understanding the problem and 10 minutes on the solution, right? And I think that's something I'm trying to, as a leader, right? Obviously, help the teams to do. Think about where the problem is coming from. What are we talking about, right? Before we're getting into a solution mode, which is sometimes very much easier. Yeah. So, and I mean, that's probably the core elements. I mean, it's the debate, it's the type of energetics and the decomposing and the starting from scratch in order to do things is the areas. Yeah.
Now, every coin has 2 sides. So there's the bright side, there's the dark side. So the dark side of ENTPs, the development areas of ENTPs, are that, or the weak points can be that they can be very argumentative. We want to win the argument, right? And in that we can sometimes be insensitive, intolerant if things go too slow. We can have difficulties to focus, and sometimes we dislike practical manners. What was your biggest challenges on the weaknesses, on the development areas, and how did you overcome that? How did you grow as a professional?
I have 2 things which I can, and there's also other inventories like Gallup or things like that, right? I was been using. So I have this syndrome. I don't know if this relates with some. If I'm the first one on a traffic sign, right, and the sign, I have to be the first one who is starting when it's getting yellow to green, right? I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know, my body is reacting to that, right? So that's one of the challenges I'm having, and actually a challenge also for the team, because I'm with being an ENTP, I'm also pretty competitive, right? And that's not always a good thing, right? Because you lose the temper, you lose kind of like you lose the in the debate, you lose the argument. You want to win at the end of the day. So I've done quite some training for myself also around stepping back and looking like trying to be, this eye of God thing, right? Just like step back, hold back in order to do that. I think that's one of the areas for me which was very important, which I was working on. Another thing is that you can't lose the team. I mean, we with our profile, let's say there's a threat to lose the team by opening too many boxes or decomposing too many things, re-challenging everything which is already there every day.
The last moment, if necessary.
People want security. Yeah. People don't want to always think about. I mean, we had some. And it reminds me that I need to do this again and again and again. You need to check back in with the team where they are. You need to check back if that is the case. Listen to the most silent person in the room, right? And not only listen when they speak, but ask them to speak up, right? So this is kind of like the things as a leader I've I'm trying to make up with, let's say, the dark side of our of our profile. Yeah.
Hans, do you have a personal mantra, and how do you use it?
Yes, my mantra is it's all right. And it's all right to fail. It's all right to continue. It's all right to go ahead. I remind myself every day to that mantra when I wake up. Actually, that it's just another day in life to continue and to work on that. Yeah, and that's basically I think core of my mantra.
Okay. And does that mean that we have to take life as it presents itself to us? Is that what the core meaning is of that?
We don't have to, but we should not get ourselves into too much of an anger or to get too much affected with things which are happening around us. It's okay. It's okay to succeed. It's okay to not succeed, right? I think the core thing here is about the learning and the journey we are in, right? So to keep on the journey, keep on focusing on learning, on changing, on doing things, right? And don't get disrupted.
Okay. Now, Hans, you shared with us that you're married, you have 2 children, they're 18 and 20 years old. And so what I wanted to know is, what are your core values? What are the values that you're passing on to your children, the values that you want to see them grow up with?
Yeah. One of the core values I have, I have to say, I mean, I'm part of the family, right? So I have to say. So we have given them is to have an opinion. Mm-hmm. I think it's extremely important to have an opinion. To know what you're doing and to actively talk about what you're doing and to be true to yourself there, right? I mean, keep on building your mindset. Keep on having that opinion in terms of what you want to learn, right? Where do you want to be? Why do you want to be there, right? Is another very important point we are giving to our children in order to reflect that and basically respect everyone around you. I have lived all my life by the time I was 16, 17, I've already lived in probably 6 or 7 different cities, right? Because we moved so much. So for me, and that's a value I give to my children as well, don't take it for granted, right? You have, you can move on, but you need to be very clear with yourself.
Okay. Who are the people that you look up to? Who are the mentors in your life, important people that you learned from, and what is that you learned? Maybe give an example what you learned from somebody.
Yeah, I think it's hard to probably find that one single mentor which kind of like changed your life. Yeah. And giving my mantra, I don't believe in that anyhow, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, I think there were many people over the time to basically get me to the place where I am today, which is important. And maybe I talk about something which is not so much related to the business, right? Sure. But something in my young ages which is still keeping up in my mind. So I was playing tennis, and I was playing tennis with my right hand. And I always had a problem with my backhand volley, all the time. So my coach was kind of like driving me crazy about this, right? And one day he said, okay, we're trying something completely new. Take the racket in your left hand, try that. Because my body was not properly standing to the net and so on. So I played actually for 1 hour with my left hand. Mm-hmm. And after that hour, I knew how to play my backhand volley with my right hand. Because I changed completely my perspective of doing things. So that is something which I think it's a symbol for things. Change your perspective, and you will see new things. Yep. So that was one of the things I would say, from a mentorship point of view, which kind of like helps me today as well.
As a good tennis trainer.
Yes.
Super. I mean, we're very fortunate, right? And you made quite a career and you're very successful in life. But if you look back, what was, and I'm sure your family and your wife and your children are very important, but outside of that, what would you describe as the best thing that has ever happened to you in your life?
I knew that you're asking me that, so I was preparing myself a little bit for it. And yes, I mean, outside of the family and these personal things, I guess I really have to say that one of the best things happened to me in the last 10 years is to join that company here. And I'm not saying that, I mean, to join Red Hat, and I'm not saying that because I'm sitting now here. I'm saying that because I have been able to really manage my style, my personality inside of Red Hat, like and to build this even further, like what has not been able to do before, and that's one of the fortunate things, I think, and I'm thankful for that. To all my colleagues as well to tolerate my that with me, but I think that's really good.
The flip side of that is that everybody encounters bad things in their life. So maybe you want to share one of the worst things that have happened in your life, professional or personal, and how did you overcome that? What did you learn from that?
Yeah, so let's look at it from a professional point of view. Worst things. So, and the worst things are the days of defeat, I would say, right? So I remember time when I was really getting into, we wanted to win a certain tender. It was not within Red Hat, it was with my old company, and we were flying in the whole team to this place week and week and week. It took us a lot of money and a lot of passion, and then we're basically learning, I mean, that's after the fact now, kind of like throw good money after bad money. Right? We lost the deal in the first day. Yeah. Okay, we just couldn't accept it. Yeah. So that was one of the times where I was really, I'd say, very much. It was a bad day or a worse thing that happened to me. The learning out of that for me was really to listen to your senses, right? Because I was not listening to myself, right? I was just saying, we spent already that amount and we have to be there and we have to be there. So that's a learning for me, which I mean, it's fortunately is many years ago. So I was able to use that learning. But that's one of the things.
Take your losses, move on to the next thing, and the next opportunity.
Yes, but understand when you lose.
Yeah. Okay. In your life, Hans, what is it that you really love most?
I mean, I tell you, I have this saying: I hate it more to lose than I love it to win. Okay. If you think about it, it comes back to our thread here, right? But I really love and I enjoy being successful together with the team, right? Seeing people succeeding around me. Yeah. I'm the person who is stepping back. I love stepping back, and if you look at my CV, I have grown by growing myself out of where I am, right, and have others going. So that's what I love. That's the best moments of my life.
What is it that you fear most? And maybe not only professional, but also in general in life?
Well, it's a difficult question, very very personal. Everybody has the fear of loss, right? That's probably one of the areas I'm very grateful of where I am today. I fear that there are circumstances around us which are out of our control, which was basically destroy the wonderful time, I would say, if you compare the time we are living in today into history, right? And we see what's going on around our world here with the aggression of Russia in Ukraine. That's my biggest fear, that these times come to an end and we are not able to control that.
Okay. If you look back at things, I mean, you had this, I can say it, a long career already, right?
Yes.
What is it that you are in your life that you're most grateful for? And maybe also link it, what do you think is your most important gift in life that you have received and that helped you in being where you are today?
I think what I'm most grateful about, and that is, I think in my personal circumstances, is that I have had a wife, a family that allowed me to do what I'm doing. because it's not given for granted that you know you spend all your life on the road, right? And the stuff at home is still working, and you can go back and you're there. So that is what I'm super grateful for in my life. And obviously, what I'm also grateful for is that making choices helped me to be where I'm today. I wouldn't have thought 30 years back probably that we are sitting here together and talking about my life, right? That is something I'm very grateful for, that those choices at the end of the day have worked out.
Yeah. So you're obviously working hard, right? You're spending a lot of time, a lot of passion and effort here at Red Hat and with your customers. What is it that you do outside of what are your personal passions? I'm very passionate. I'm a very passionate skier and tennis player. Oh, yeah. So that's the areas I'm really spending my time on, and it's probably the big movements. But what I'm really doing a lot is, which we haven't tested this before, right? I really love cooking. I do a lot of cooking, which basically just relaxes me. Okay. It's probably the thing you need to clean your brain. Yeah. Well, talking about cooking, you know our CIONET Cookbook.
Yes.
And we just came out with the second edition, CIONET Cookbook number 2. And so it's my pleasure to present you with this new edition. A very nice project that we do together with Red Hat and Intel. And so let's maybe talk a little bit about books as well, and cookbooks or books in general. Do you have, what is the advice or the books that you would advise the digital leaders or digital professionals that watch this video that have helped you and that you think are important books at the moment?
I have 3 recommendations. I was just looking at maybe, or I mean, it's recent, right? It's and that's probably the recommendation. The one thing is the No Rules Rules, the Netflix story. Yeah. I love that story about creating teams, the culture of disruption and creating things. That's absolutely great. I have read another book which I recommend as well. I recommended already a couple of colleagues. It's called Turn the Ship Around. It's a little bit older. And it's the opposite probably of Chaos, right? It's about making leaders in submarines, right? And basically being the leader of leaders, and that's a very interesting thing. I guess we were also talking about a little bit today in order to get there. And my final recommendation is just, I love, there's a cookbook called The Italian Cuisine, right? Just pick it. I mean, go shopping, it's very easy, right? Yeah. Go shopping, even if you don't know how to do it, right? Everything is written down there. Do cooking, right? Sit down with friends and eat what you have cooked, right? Yeah. That's a fantastic thing.
So, Italian cooking. Very good.
We're close to Italy here.
Very close. So Hans, thank you so much for your time today and for all your advice and sharing all your insights. These videos are being watched also by young professionals that are ambitious and that want to follow in your footsteps and want to build a career as a digital leader or an IT executive. What's the advice that you would give to these young professionals? What is it that they need to do in order to become successful in this business?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing is have a vision, but don't get stuck. That's one of the areas which I'm seeing a lot. So be open-minded in where you want to go. I mean, you need to have a plan. You need to have an idea of what you want to do, of course, right? But be open-minded. Be open-minded and learn new things. Take on leadership positions when they are coming. That's something we very often underestimate. I underestimated in my time as well, but learn from that. So there's so many areas of leadership you can take on where nobody's asking you for, but it has a high reward if you do that. And I think One other area which maybe sometimes we underestimate and young starters don't do as much is building networks is extremely important in your life. It helped me, it helps you to reflect. It's not only a network to find somebody who can bring me to the next level, but is you need to have a network of people you can go back to and check in, how do I do, right? what do you think I am? So I think these are the areas which I think young professionals can really take on some additional steps in their careers.
And so with that, Hans, it was really a pleasure. Thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you, Hendrik.